Hello, everybody, and welcome to this first video interview kind of thing that we're doing here on the Jump Cut Play YouTube channel. And joining us for this momentous occasion is the one and only Bryan Paul, also known as PSVR Without Parole. How are you doing, Bryan?
I'm doing great. If I knew it was a momentous occasion, I would have done something special, like worn a tie or gotten ready for the inaugural episode, man.
Could you just tell everyone what is it you do at PSVR Without Parole?
I play lots of PlayStation VR games. I review PlayStation VR games. I talk about PlayStation VR games incessantly. We do Let's Plays, breaking news reports. We really do our absolute best to try to be like the one-stop place that if you're a PlayStation VR gamer, you come to us and you get everything you need. I don't know how successful we are at that, but man, it's gone from just like a little hobby in my bedroom to being like, a full-blown obsession in my bedroom, to the point where I was able to quit my job waiting tables, which I did for 20 years or 25 years. I finally get to do that. I finally get to quit that a year ago and like actually pursue my dreams. So it's been an incredible journey, man.
Oh, kind of a good segue, because that brings me on to what I was going to ask. I think you've been running this channel for 6 or so years now. Is that about right?
Last month was 6 years.
6 years. Well, congratulations on that, first of all. But it wasn't, am I right in saying it wasn't always PSVR focused when you first started it?
Well, it started 2 years before PlayStation VR even existed.
Right, yeah.
So my big passion in life has always been retro gaming, because I grew up with the games that are now retro. So I love playing games and even, current gen stuff. And so when we started the channel, it was, I don't know how many people know this story. So if you don't mind me going on a little rant here. I didn't know anybody that was as obsessed with gaming as I was. I had recently moved back here to Massachusetts from Tennessee, and I was sort of like kind of creating a new group of friends. Like I didn't know how to do that at 30 years old, right? It's like, oh, how do you make friends at 30? That's strange. And so I actually put out a Craigslist ad. That was the only thing I could think of. I put out a Craigslist ad to say, we got a guest star.
Amazing.
I love this girl. She's the best. I put out a Craigslist ad asking if somebody would like to start a podcast with me about video games. And dude, you don't even know. Like, I mean, I didn't have a YouTube channel. I didn't have a podcast. I had nothing. And the number of responses I got that were like people sending me like resumes and pages of information saying, oh, this is my qualifications. I've written for this publication and this publication. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, this isn't a paying job. And they were all like, no, I just love to do this too. And I'm like, oh, great. So it was, and that's how I met my friend Mike Zeller. And we basically, he was my guest host. He was my co-host for, I don't know, like the first year of the channel. And that's just how things got rolling. We covered everything at that point. And to get back to your question, when PlayStation VR came out, it's all I wanted to talk about. And my co-hosts at the time were like, man, you are really obsessed with this. And so they got on board and they were like, if this is what you want to do, if this is all you want to talk about, then let's do it, man. And everyone got a PSVR and jumped on board and came along for the ride.
How did you obviously, I remember when PlayStation VR came out, maybe just to me because I was a bit younger and I didn't have I had money, but not enough to, but I'm going to slam down because I think I just, got the PS4 and that was like a saving. The PSVR, I was like, that looks cool, but it's not something I could commit to yet. What is it that kind of, you, without even, had you experienced VR before PlayStation, or was it just going for it?
Never. The only thing I knew about VR was that in the 16-bit era, a bunch of companies had tried it unsuccessfully. I used to see the kiosks in the mall that they were too expensive for me as a kid to like be like, I'm going to shell out $20 for a 10-minute experience or whatever it was. And so I never even got to try VR. It was The Lawnmower Man when I was 15. The Lawnmower Man, the Stephen King movie, is what always kind of stuck in my head anytime someone said VR. That's what I pictured. It was just this craziness. And so when PlayStation announced that they were doing this Project Morpheus thing and that they were delving into VR, in my head I was like, oh, that's cute. Somebody else is trying it. It's like, it's never going to happen. It's never going to be the thing we saw in the movie literally like 25 years ago. And it was better. Like it was full-fledged games and like unbelievable immersion. And it's just so fascinating to me. I couldn't believe that they had actually succeeded. On a console that was kind of like mid-life cycle. like this thing shouldn't be able to do this. They sort of
Yeah.
shoehorned the whole thing onto the PlayStation 4. It's like, how did this even happen? So it was magical. It was magical that they were able to do it, and it was so user friendly. So yeah, that's it, man. That was my I guess that was my fascination with it.
Was it literally just one of those moments when I'm guessing, was it like PSVR Worlds? Was that the first one you tried out and you just put the headset on, like, that's it, I'm in?
I'm trying to think, man. I want to say it was probably the demo disc,
Yeah.
right? The demo disc that came packed in with it, which I don't know if you know, is developed by White Moon Dreams. They put that whole thing together. Okay. The guys who made Star Blood Arena. And so I remember I had just set up all the wires, and I wasn't sure if it was working right. And but the PlayStation headset lit up, and I was like, huh, okay, well, I guess this is it, man. I'm going to put the thing on. And there was a moment when everything was sort of when I saw my PlayStation home screen for the first time through the headset, and it was sort of locked in place, and I'm looking around, but it's just staying there. My brain couldn't quite comprehend how it was working, and so my first impressions were, I'm seeing through the headset and seeing my television. Like my brain I just couldn't connect the dots. And so I went over and I selected the demo disc, and then and it started up, and there was like that big, like just white plains environment, and it was just so magical because suddenly, for the first time in VR, I got it. I looked around and I was like, oh, I'm in the game. Like, I'm not just going to be like looking at the game with some really cool 3D effects happening around me. I'm in it. And it was magical. It's absolutely magical. It was the demo disc menu screen. I was like, so you can only imagine that everything else I did for the rest of the day, like I took the day off from work that day. I was like, I'm not coming in. We've got things to do here. Like Here They Lie, Rush of Blood, Drive Club VR. I mean, just everything blew me away. So that was, it was incredible. I could not believe that anybody had any complaints about it. I'd heard from people saying, I think Kind of Funny sort of did a brief synopsis of their thoughts on it. And they said, keep your expectations low. And I was like, oh, that's disappointing. I've already pre-ordered this thing. I'm like, keep expectations low. Like, yeah, it doesn't look that good, blah, blah, blah. I was like, huh. And so when I tried it, I was like, I was like, my expectations couldn't, no matter how high they were, they would have been blown out of the water.
Yeah, I think I remember
I was
those videos you were talking about. I can't remember who it was. You might be right, but I remember it was just like this. We did a couple of hours of just testing everything on PlayStation VR, and they came out like clearly not enjoying it at all. And it was like, it's a console headset. And I was like, oh, okay. And I got one probably a couple of years later, just secondhand off a family member, ridiculous price. It was like £100. He just gave me everything, so it's insane. And I put it on again with no expectations. I tried it on at his house. I was like, this is ridiculous. How much do you want for it? Because it was just sitting gathering dust, and it's lived here ever since. So, but even like with Hitman 3, there's times, I don't know if you feel the same way, you hit a point like, I can't be blown away by VR anymore. And then when I booted up the Paris level in Hitman, I was like, holy shit, how have we got here? And this isn't even a PS5 game technically. It's like, it's just, it keeps you there. It's, I don't know, it's probably the same, just you're still going to get blown away at some point.
Yeah, I really thought we had seen everything. So this is, we've seen the best that this thing can do. We've seen the best that the hardware can push through the lenses. We've probably seen the highest resolution. But I kept saying, the thing I kept saying for the last year or two has been like, we've seen how high the resolution can be in the headset with games like Job Simulator, with like cartoony games. And we've seen how detailed it can be at a lower res with games like Resident Evil 7. But for a game like Hitman to come along that actually combines those two things, the highest resolution and the amazing level of detail, I still don't know what they're doing there behind the scenes. Like IO Interactive, and hopefully whatever engine they're using, I don't know if it was like, helped through by Sony or what the deal was, but whatever they're doing, I hope that they can license that out, because it makes me feel like I'm playing a PSVR 2 on a PlayStation 5. Visually, it is next gen VR as far as I'm concerned.
It makes me really curious. Like, obviously we don't know what was kind of going on behind the scenes with that VR mode, if it was something they spent, a huge amount of money and resources on, or they figured out a way, like we always say, to flick the switch. Like, have they found, obviously they had to do a lot of changes, and you notice that in levels, but have IO Interactive, like, have they cracked it? Like, there's a way maybe on the PlayStation software, it's like, yeah, we found a way that can take games, and it's a couple adjustments, kind of like Dreams have done as well. Maybe like they could have cracked it as well, because they literally just had, here's all these games, they might look a bit weird in VR. Like if you took Hitman and didn't change the angle, yeah, it would have been a bit freaky. But they did that adjustment. So do you think that, I could just be wrong, do you think we're very close to having that flick the switch happening?
So somebody finally woke up Lloyd in the basement, huh?
Yeah.
And said, dude, it's time to start flipping some switches. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think that the issue here is that, I think Sony probably paid IO Interactive a ton of money, and the problem is that the ton of money they paid them was enough to probably hire as many people that was necessary and make this thing happen. Whereas like a lot of indie studios are working with what they've got, and so I think it's only going to be the super AAA studios that are going to be able to kind of like pull this power out. And that's sort of been the case with games since day one, right? The more money you have and the more talented team you have and the bigger team you have, you're able to like really work the hardware more. Like no one made the PlayStation 3 look as good as Naughty Dog ever. There were beautiful games on PlayStation 3, but Naughty Dog made those games look like PlayStation 4 games. And so I think that we are probably coming to a natural end with PlayStation 1, and I think that it's a beautiful end. I think this is going to be a fantastic year, and I think we're going to see a couple more standout titles, and a ton of amazing indie games that should be really, really fun to play. But if this is the last year for PlayStation 1, man, we are going out with a bang.
Yeah,
it's really good stuff.
Absolutely. To turn things a wee bit, do you ever, as somebody who you say you spend literally almost every waking moment inside that headset, is there ever a point? I know, like, I am a VR fan, but I'm still probably unlike you. I play a lot of flat screens. So like nighttime for me is Switch, playing an old Final Fantasy game until I fall asleep or something like that. Do you ever feel like a VR overload where you just put it in like, I need to stop for like a couple days because this is getting too much?
Yeah, I think I wish I was joking about this, but I think I burn out probably once a week. Like, and it's from the workload of the channel and just like, those screens in your eyes, like, for hours and hours and hours every single day. And it's constant, man. It's constant. It's like, oh man, a game comes out like Hitman, or like even worse, like I say even worse, like it's a great thing when you get a game, when developers are kind enough to send you a game ahead of time so you can have a review ready at launch. But man, that means you are going to be playing that game nonstop. Sometimes you only have 2 or 3 days to play a 60-hour game. So like, well, I guess I'm not sleeping for the next couple of days. I guess I'm only going to play a VR game. And so yeah, like I said, I probably burn out like once a week. But I'll tell you what saved me. Flat screen games don't do it for me. Current gen flat screen games I've tried, like Resident Evil 2 remake should be the greatest game on the face of the planet for me. That is that, right? It's beautiful. I keep trying to go back to it. I go back to it every couple weeks and I plug away for another hour and a half or so. And I'm like, this is so good, but it's not the way I want to play this. I want to play this in first person VR. And so I kind of like lose interest and fizzle out and don't come back to it. But I recently started Without Parole Retro, which is a retro YouTube channel. And that is what I love more than anything else. Yeah. Like that is what keeps me sane, and to be able to like hang out with viewers of the channel and play some stuff that doesn't require the headset on is really a nice, refreshing change of pace, and it brings me back to my roots, and it just makes me all warm and fuzzy, man. Like I'm a warm and fuzzy guy, and so getting to be warm and fuzzy is like one of my favorite things. Give me pizza and a blanket, and I'm happy.
Is that kind of been obviously not a recent thing, but have you? Obviously, with the channel, that's really new, that kind of retro thing. Was that something you've always been doing since, like, we say the last couple of years? Have you always been going back to retro gaming, or has it just been a recent thing with like getting towards the end of PSVR when you're like, I'm gonna tone it down a bit, because I know that was when your Saturday morning streams, right? Getting you confused with AG, and you're now doing that as the retro thing. So was that just a case of like, I need to? Because obviously this is your job as well. You need to have a separation between, like, it was like, okay, I'm going to work with PSVR and then I'm going to go, at least I know how I am, like, especially doing like game journalism, it's hard to, make the divide. So it's like, I'm going to go play something and not treat it like work. Is this just been a recent thing, or has it been always there?
Well, I mean, like, if you look next to my bed, you're always going to find like a Game Boy Advance SP or any kind of portable system. But I'll go as obscure, as like I've got a Lynx version 2, an Atari Lynx. I've got a Game Gear sitting around. I mean, Neo Geo Pocket Color. Like these things are like laying next to my bed, and so instead of like watching a movie to go to sleep with,
Yeah.
sleep to, I'll grab a little handheld and play some games for like 20-30 minutes until I start to like doze off. Like, nice. And so that was my retro game fix. I mean, if I was being really smart, then I wouldn't be doing this retro channel at all. I would just allot some time every week where I could just play games and not have to be on YouTube. But I'm a workaholic.
Yeah.
And if I don't feel like I'm like interacting with the community is one of my favorite things to do, like hanging out on Discord, and responding to people in the comments on YouTube, talking on Twitter. Like, I mean, there's a million ways. But the problem is that there's a million ways, and I'm like the guy running the show behind the scenes here, and and so like it's very frequently too much. Like I can't, if I spend all day responding to PSN messages and Discord messages and whatever, and trying to keep up with it all, my whole day's gone.
Yeah.
Like that is a full day of work right there. And so it's really nice to be able to say, you know what, for the next 2 or 3 hours, I'm going to go play Resident Evil 2 original on PlayStation 1 on the retro channel. And like, whoever wants to come by and hang out and shoot the shit, I'm there, man. Like, let's hang out and let's talk. And so that's how I like to communicate. That's how I like to interact with the community. And so that's why the channel made sense rather than just allotting time to play it on my own. Because again, I'm a workaholic, and this is Without Parole Retro is just a hobby right now. And maybe it'll turn into something else. I don't know. Like, but it's just another way to be able to hang out with everybody.
Yeah, it's especially then I've never tried it, but streaming from the VR headset is, especially when you've got a lot. I remember when you did The Walking Dead, the day that came out, and it was just thousands of people, and you can just hear them all comment by comment, going, "Is this out? Is this out?" I was like, I don't know how you're doing this.
The chat was so backed up that day because I don't read the comments in the headset. I listened to them with speech chat. Speech chat couldn't keep up, and so one of my moderators, and God, shout out to all my moderators who make my life so much easier. They figured out how backed up the chat was. They were like, it's 45 minutes. It's backed up by 45 minutes. So they were apologizing to people for me, saying, if you comment now, stick around because it's going to be a while till he hears it. So that was crazy.
We've mentioned a few times Resident Evil, but know for a fact, I'm getting Resident Evil 7 still your number one. That's not changed since Hitman, has it? Do we know?
God, Hitman's still too new, man. Yeah. I'm nervous about the next top 25 debate when we all sit around and figure out the next top 25 list, because Hitman feels really new and fresh and different. Like, it's a different kind of game than I'd ever played before, because I never was really into the Hitman series. I dabbled, but didn't dive too deep. So for me, it's a new style of game. It's a new type of game. It's a new way of playing games, and it's just fun to explore those sandboxes. But I don't know, man. I'm a horror fan at heart, and in Resident Evil 7, just did everything so perfectly. I could play that game like ad infinitum, man. Like you feed that into my veins, and it's the only game I need to play for the rest of my life. So yeah, I will say tentatively, Resident Evil 7 is probably my favorite.
Not
still
to throw my hat into the ring, but personally, if Hitman gets Move controller support, then it's the best PlayStation VR game of all time. Until that day, very close. But when I'm playing it, I'm like, if this had Move support, this would be insane. So fingers crossed for that. I think if that happens, then the debate's going to be about 9 hours long, so good luck. But
it is tough to get over that, man. It's because they came this close to being everything perfect. It's so strange.
Because the works, I mean, I don't know how, I don't have a clue how game development works. When you're playing, it's like, I feel like you have done the work. It's not like Resident Evil 7, where it's like adding Move support would be a huge task. Like, you've done it. You've just got this arm sticking out. Just add the other arm and then you're fine.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I agree.
What do you think if Hitman is coming close? Is there something a game needs to do to topple RE7 from that crown? Like, to just, because I know it's been your favorite since it came out. What would, and no, it's kind of very hypothetical. Like, would it have to be something like, I don't know if you've played Half-Life Alyx or something, which has kind of horror elements. Would it have to be something like that on PlayStation VR?
I amazingly haven't played Half-Life Alyx.
It's so up your alley, I think. I can't play it. It's too scary. It's too much.
Wait. Half-Life Alyx is too scary?
Oh yeah, it's horrifying. It's
scarier than Resident Evil 7?
I can play Resident Evil 7. I mean, I'm pretty scared of Resident Evil 7, but I can play Resident Evil 7 more consistently without wanting to cry. Mainly because I have
Wow.
this like irrational fear of head crabs and anything jumping at your face. So the first time my girlfriend was watching, I was like, "Oh, I've got Half-Life Alyx, you need to see this." And that head crab jumped me. I generally like ripped the headset off. I was like, "No, not playing it." I got about halfway through, and there's this bit you get halfway through, and it's just this corridor, and you see about 10 of like, remember like the really fast zombie head crabs. Have you ever seen them in Half-Life? Just 10 of
Yeah,
them
yeah.
crawling into this. I was like, "Yeah, fuck this." I was like, never again. So maybe that could
That's
be
great.
it. But I don't know if you've got another one in like, and if you had to imagine a game that would like, yeah, that would take the best spot.
I don't know. I mean, the fact is that, despite how far VR has come, we
Mhm.
haven't had a ton of full-length adventures.
Yeah.
I'll speak to Alex. Hopefully at some point we'll see that on PlayStation VR, whether it be PSVR 2, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I've got all. If you've seen the channel, I've got all sorts of conspiracy theories. But yeah, to topple Resident Evil 7, I mean, like I can only the only people that I think are in a good position to do that is Capcom.
Yeah.
Like I really think that they're the only ones, because not only is the RE engine perfect for VR, like that, it just everything looks beautiful. Sorry, sirens on my end. It's a lot of
A
sirens on
lot of
my end.
science
Wow.
today.
Wait, they're chasing them. Yeah, they know how to make an engaging campaign. They know how to that RE engine. It's just stunning graphically. Like I mean, it's like I love how Hitman looks.
Yeah.
And they're convincing environments, but there's something about the environments where I'm like, oh man, like the gritty,
Yeah.
dark, disgusting Baker estate still feels more realistic to
Mhm.
me. And it's scary games, man. Scary games are just my jam. So like when it comes to preferences, whatever tops Resident Evil 7 is going to have to be scary. And I honestly hate to say this, but because I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh man, with move controllers it would be amazing. But like when I play Saints and Sinners, and I have to be stealthy and stuff, and I'm good to move controllers in my hands, like I am acting stealthy and I'm actually being stealthy. But Resident Evil is, it's just I'm moving an analog stick around.
Yeah.
So if I think whatever happens next, whatever next gen is, I'm sure every game's going to have motion controls and analog sticks. So I think more games are going to be able to kind of break that boundary
Yeah.
that Capcom has sort of set.
Are
But
you
yeah, man, horror games. The scarier, the better. That's the
Are you a
answer.
fan of Resident Evil 4? Just because I know there's rumors of that coming to VR. Is that because I know that's quite an action heavy one? Would that be something? And that's like, again, it feels like a different genre. Like it feels like a different series from 7. But would 4 be something like, if you got, I don't, like, would that be like, holy shit, this is amazing? Because I know for me, I've played 4 so many times that would be insane. I don't know how it would work, but just even being in that world would be like, this is crazy. It'd be like one of those kind of like watershed moments. Like, okay, VR is there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Resident Evil 4 would be amazing. It's I always I think I'm in the minority when I think that the first half of that game is amazing and the second half kind of peters out quite a bit. But it's if they redo all the environments and just the first person aspect alone, there's little things, and I guess this will kind of relate to your last question. There's little things that Resident Evil 7 does that when you're playing are like small irritations that like you don't even think about when you're not playing it because the overall experience is so amazing. But those like small moments where like the screen blacks out when something's happening, when there's a big movement or something, which is so crazy that the screen would ever black out, because I think in the first fight with Mia, like you get thrown to the floor, and I don't know how much of that gets blacked out. I feel like there are moments where you're actually like moving. You're kind of thrown in like that. You're still in the moment with that. So these are the kind of things that I hope. Like because I immediately was thinking Resident Evil 4 at the beginning. When you're kind of going through the farmhouses and stuff out in the countryside, and you can jump out windows. There's a button prompt to like jump out the window, and Leon does a flip out the window and lands on his feet, and he's all like action movie star. And I'm like, man, that's cool, but I don't want to see a cutscene of that happening. I don't want the screen to black out and then suddenly I'm on the ground. I want to like experience that in VR. Sirento has proven to us that, like give us an option, man. Give us an option. I want to do flips and do crazy things in VR.
I think that just needs to be like the evolution of the comfort options. Like make it clear as like, do you want to have the absolute full experience, or do you want us to like Hitman to a lesser extent? Because anytime you put somebody in like hide them, it fades to black. But which I don't know, even that is like such a short cutscene. Is that I'm already, not that you're doing anything particularly crazy in Hitman, but I feel like that kind of movement for some people is already going to be like motion sickness inducing anyway. Like just being in, especially how realistic the environment. Well, maybe the realism helps, but yeah, I think that. I think we will see more of that. Especially, hopefully, they don't rework RE4 to have just no levels to any of the buildings. Like, no flipping through. You just got to walk. But
yeah, that'd be weird.
Have to wait and see. But thinking of still PSVR focused, but with Facebook selling the Quest at a loss and coming out that the PS5's been sold at a loss, do you think they're going to sell PSVR 2 at a loss as well, or they're going to? Because I'm on the same page as you. I think it's going to be. They're not going to follow the Facebook model. This is going to be a console generation. So this is PSVR 2. This will do you for like 6 years. So, but I can't picture if that's going to be sold at a loss or it's going to be no, it's the same price as the console. So do you think what is going to be? I know I realize it's asking a lot of you, like, find out the business plan for Sony, but what do you think the best approach for them to get more headsets and people? Because that's what Facebook are trying to do. They're just trying to get headsets everywhere. And Sony were just not sure what approach they're going for yet.
Yeah, I mean, PlayStation VR 1 has always been sold for profit. They've never taken a loss on PSVR 1. And, for being like one of the first, very, very, the first successful, I guess, VR headset for consoles, that's it seems like the parts would have been like a lot more expensive then, and so I feel like that there's a lot more people manufacturing these parts, and they'd be producing them in higher numbers at this point too. It's still tough to say though. It's still tough to say. I've gone back and forth so many times on saying that I want this thing to be a $600 headset that I'm not going to have to replace for 6 or 7 years. But then there's another part of me that's like, you know what? Let's make this a $300 headset. Let's make it super consumer friendly. Let's just make sure that the field of vision and the resolution is really high, so that you get in there and everything looks crisp and clear, and that those new controllers that we're getting, have some sort of finger tracking and analog sticks, and just give everyone the update, get them up to speed with PC VR. Like, I don't think anybody's asking for too much more than that. I think the people who are asking for like haptics in the headset and God, I'm trying to think of like what other crazy things people want in VR. But like, I don't need that, man. Like, all I need is like new controllers, better lenses, higher resolution, wider field of vision, and I'm good. So there's a part of me that says, keep the price low, keep it around $300, because they might be selling Quest at a loss, but they've also got an onboard processor. They've got the battery in there. Like, PlayStation doesn't really need to do that. We could probably have an entire 3-hour conversation about whether it should be wired or wireless or standalone or not. But I mean, like, they'd be crazy to not utilize the power of the PlayStation 5. So I think that they're going to be able. I kind of want them to keep the cost low, $350, something like that, and then in like 3 or 4 years, or I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years, be like, and here's the PSVR 2 Pro. Right. You can upgrade. It's not necessary, but now it has haptics and even wider screens, whatever, that kind of stuff.
I mean, I could be wrong, but a lot of the times when you hear like, oh, it needs haptics, it needs to like blow wind in my face, I need to feel heat, that comes from people who haven't played VR a lot of the time. It's people, at least for me, it's like, oh, you should try VR. It's like, oh, I'm not playing VR until it's fully immersive. But then once you play it, you don't just chuck a fan on like in your room and you're playing Skyrim. Like, there we go, that's all I need. But what do you think is, because like, we've said the price, we've covered motion sickness. Like, do you think? Because again, we don't know what Oculus Quest 2 numbers are, but even if they're amazing numbers, it's still not, at least in my circle and people I work with. And I'm like, oh, is anyone playing VR? Nah, silence. Like, nah, I'm just not into it. And it's such a hard thing, especially with the PS5. It's like, no, I know it's only going to be $350 or whatever, but just try it. So I don't know what step anyone can take, really, unless they're just giving them away for free to get people in this headset. I don't, because we're at the point, it's like, software's there. And we're always like, oh, what's going to be the game? I know you get that question a lot. It's like, what's the game going to be that gets people into VR? It's like, the games are there. Like, we're past the point of, like, GTA 5, which might be coming in VR. Cool. Like, we've already got, The Walking Dead. That's a system seller. Hitman's a system seller. So again, a difficult question, but do you think there is a step that Sony can take? Like, look, this is how you get people who aren't into VR into VR.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. And I gotta say, I probably said this a bunch on Without Parole already, but I have to say that I sort of admire Sony for being so quiet,
Yeah.
because they, like, Oculus is doing all of their work for them right now.
Yep.
The hardest thing that Sony had to do over the last 4 years that they were only mildly successful at was to convince people that you should try games in VR, that you should play a VR game. Converting people to VR has been the hardest thing. It's hard to do marketing wise, because you can show someone in a commercial putting on a VR headset, and then you can show what they see. But does that really convey the feeling, like the real immersion? No, of course not, because you're watching someone on a flat screen put on a headset, and then you're watching what they see on a flat screen. Like, it doesn't translate well. And so it's been really difficult, I think, from a marketing perspective. But somehow Facebook, with Oculus Quest and Quest 2, has sort of been doing pretty good. And like, so I've just been sitting back, and I think Sony's just been sitting back going, man, the longer we wait to release PlayStation VR 2, the more people Oculus will have converted over to VR gamers, and that's half the job. Now Sony can step in next year, this year, whenever, and say, but this is what AAA games look like in VR.
I think a lot of the time, I think if people are getting Quest 2, I was just playing Saints Sinners in the Quest, and I was like, this is, it's impressive for what's there. But I think we will hit a point. There has to be people like Quest sole owners who have a PS5 or whatever. They're seeing people in Hitman, like, and like, oh, can I play Hitman on the Quest? And I'm sure at one point it's going to come to PC and whatever. But
sure.
I think with the content that, again, Sony are all about the games, and they've shown that they're not stopped making games. We know that. I mean, it'd be very strange. Like, here's Astrobot, here's Blood and Truth, and we're done. So we're not, huge system sellers. We're just not going to stop making them. So I think, what if people are on board with VR? I think you're right. It's going to be the case of, I want to get something better, and the Quest 2 might just start to slow down, which is good. Like, we're going to get that competition between, maybe Oculus will be like, oh, maybe we need to make like not a standalone headset anymore. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think to answer your question about like, I was thinking about like what games could convince people that VR was the way forward, or convince them to even just pick up a VR headset and try something out. Because we've gotten Skyrim, which is like one of the biggest games in the world. We've gotten Minecraft, which is the biggest game in the world. Like, I feel like we've gotten some really, really popular franchises to come over, and that hasn't done the trick. But I do think when there comes a point when, because once upon a time, Sony mandated that everybody that puts out a game on PlayStation 4 also put out a PlayStation 4 upgrade. Somehow, whether it be a frame rate, or whether it be a resolution patch, or whatever it is, to take advantage of the PlayStation 4 Pro. And like, I've had this dream over and over and over, where they do this big E3 press conference and they show off all their upcoming games, and there's games like Ghostwire Tokyo and the next Horizon game, and then and they're just talking about all these different flat screen games, and then they reveal the PlayStation VR 2, and they say, and every game you saw tonight is also playable in VR. And like, that's going to be the magic moment where people go, oh, I already own these games, or I'm going to buy these games anyway. When everything is in VR, then it's going to be really hard to resist. But when like a select few games are in VR, people are still like, it's not there yet.
Yeah. Do you think, this is an added question I didn't plan, do you think it's going to be backwards compatible, or is it just going to be completely, because I'm thinking, if people get into VR with VR 2 and they've got that PS Plus collection thing, I don't know if that's going to grow anymore, but as it stands, you've got Resident Evil 7 on it, and it's like, there you go, you've got a AAA hours and hours game that's going to keep you invested, and it's free. I think they've said they're not expanding that collection, but in Sony, they'll just change their minds at the last minute and keep adding to it. So do you think it's going to be backwards compatible, or just completely one thing?
I mean, so Sony's weird about backwards compatibility, right? It's like, so like the PlayStation 4 wasn't backwards compatible with the PlayStation 3. PlayStation 5 is backwards compatible with the PlayStation 4. You had to get this adapter to plug in the PlayStation VR. It seems like it's a case by case basis. And I think that the biggest issue is actually just going to come from a technological standpoint, where it's all these PlayStation VR games, PlayStation VR 1 games use light tracking. And whatever's next isn't going to use light tracking. Like, is it going to be inside out tracking? Probably, but it's definitely not going to be light tracking. So that kind of presents a problem, I think, unless Lloyd in the basement has another magical switch switch to flip. I think that's going to cause some problems. I think a lot of developers are going to have to go in and retool their games. But I think that's also a great opportunity for developers of PlayStation VR 1 games to say, hey, you know what, we've made this game and it sold okay on PlayStation VR 1, but now we can relaunch it on PlayStation VR 2 with upgraded graphics to take advantage of PlayStation 5 with this better tracking system, analog sticks, like maybe they can like add in like different locomotion systems or comfort settings that weren't there before, and they can take advantage of this new audience, this brand new audience that is going to be exponentially bigger than the PlayStation VR 1 audience ever was. I mean, like, that's less than a 5% attach rate we have right now, and I'd be shocked if they didn't sell 5 million PSVR 2s in the first year, of launch. So, I think, and hopefully these developers are also smart enough to be like, but we don't want to alienate the people that bought our game originally. We want to make sure that they get the PSVR 2 upgrade for free. Yeah. I think that's like the dream answer. Like if everything goes as according to plan Bryan, which I've been doing this a long time, and nothing has ever gone according to plan Bryan. So I don't expect any of this to happen. But I think that would be the perfect answer.
You've nailed it. I think that's it. Sony are like, he's got it. We've got it. Like, this is it.
We're going back to the drawing board. Listen to what Bryan said.
Completely scrap it. To round us off, a bit of a not as heavy thinking question, but if there was any game, I know you were thinking Resident Evil 2 already, but if there's any game and like best implementation of, I guess, like of the hardware we've got right now, graphical wise, they use a PS5 upgrade, best motion controls, it can be existing or you can just make it up. What would the game be if it was to come to VR? Like your dream game? It can be a remake, it can be anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get too creative here because I've been wanting to play BioShock in VR for pretty much my entire life.
Yeah.
It was amazing on PlayStation 3. I loved everything about that game, and they don't have to do very much to it in my book. I mean, I will take the PlayStation 3 graphics, just shove them into VR. Move support would be amazing, but whatever, just make sure it gets here.
Yeah.
It's just a remake of BioShock 1. Obviously the best game in the series by far. That's all I need to be happy, man. I'm a pretty simple guy.
I'm more of a BioShock Infinite, but each their own. Give us all of them. Why not? Might as well.
I knew there was something wasn't quite right about you. The whole time I was trying to figure out what it was, and you gave yourself up right at the end. Kyle.
Bottled it right at the end. Just say thank you again for joining with the interview for our momentous occasion, as we've said. I guess just where can our readers and our listeners and our viewers, where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean the best answer is Without Parole, PSVR Without Parole on YouTube. It's where I am 24/7, pretty much. If you're into retro games, I mean, you can search for Without Parole Retro as well. That's, again, very much a hobby. Find me on Twitter at Parole PSVR, and we got a Discord link if you want to share that with your viewers too. That is like legit. I wake up in the morning, I brew some coffee, I sit at my computer, and I just shoot the shit with all the game cats out there.
Don't know how you keep up with it. I sometimes go to see it, there's like 400 notifications. I'm like, good God, where to begin?
Day by day, Kyle, or minute by minute sometimes.